watching The Producer's Room, a streaming web series featuring the creators behind the hit songs of today's music industry. Songwriters, music producers, and artists discuss their creative process as well as examining current issues and technologies in today's rapidly changing music business. Your host is producer, songwriter, and educator Dave Tuff. Welcome to The Producer's Room.
Welcome to this episode of The Producer's Room. So glad to have you here. Once again, we're at the historic House of David studios here on Music Row. And I wanted to mention that House of David actually just got their historic registration from the Mike, what is the name of the organization? Nashville Historic Society. So it's now designated a historic building here on Music Row, and we've been trying to save some studios here like RCS Studio B, and now House of David is in that group. I would also encourage you to like our Facebook page for The Producer's Room. You can find us just by doing a Facebook search, and like our YouTube page, because we're going to give you opportunities to get some free information, some free videos from industry professionals later on down the road. Plus, we'll let you know about our upcoming shows. So I'm really excited about our guest today. Let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about him, and then I'll introduce him. Grammy Award winner Jeff Balding has become a well-established fixture of the Nashville community as a producer, engineer, and mixer. During his 26 years of experience, Jeff Balding has worked with Winona Judd, Faith Hill, Leanne Rimes, Taylor Swift, Carrie Underwood, the list keeps going, Keith Urban, Michael Bolton, Jewel, Shania Twain, Steve Curtin Chapman, Celine Dion, Megadeth, and many others. And I'm partial to Jeff because he's also a Belmont grad, and we'll talk more about your opportunities that you've found to give back to the community as well. So welcome to The Producer's Room, Jeff Balding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So excited to have you here, and we just kind of ran into each other at a Belmont event you did a few months ago, and maybe you could tell us about that and what award you received, and maybe we could start there, just as some of your involvement with Belmont University.
Well, that was a lecture series, I think, that you're talking about,
the
right?
lecture series, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I think Morris family.
The Morris, and I knew I thought some award came with it, or you were esteemed lecturer or something.
It was very kind of them. They presented me with something.
Yeah.
But yes, and I love doing those things.
That's cool. And so, and you probably had a lot of questions from the students. Were you able to get back?
Questions, and you never know where those things are going to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting. That one took a left turn and went somewhere I wasn't totally expecting it. And then we had a lunch afterwards with about, I don't know, 10, 12 students. And that really took a different direction. And I love it, though.
Well, what are the students, are they curious? Are they curious about the business? Because I couldn't stay for the whole lunch, but are they worried about this whole entrepreneurial landscape out there?
I think, I mean, I think it's a very competitive environment now. It's definitely a different structure that we're looking at, and the variable income streams and the diversity that's needed. It's quite a different world. Yeah.
And then I know you're real involved with NARIS. We were just discussing that before the show. Tell us a little bit about, I know you were president of the Nashville chapter a couple years back. Or
I was, I'm in the middle of my first term as a trustee.
Okay.
That's a 2-year term, and president's a 2-year term, so I was president before that.
That's great.
And, that's a real honor. I still, it's still hard to believe, but it's a lot of work, but it's great. And I believe in the organization. I mean, it's a great organization. They do great things for the industry, and that's why I give back to that.
Good.
From advocacy to the producer and engineers wing, which does a lot to have a big voice for producers and engineers. Yeah. I think that's important for the future of the industry.
Did you help pass that new law through Congress as far as the sound exchange?
It's not been passed yet, but there's so many co-sponsors that signed on now that I think it's got a pretty good head of steam going. Be great. Hopefully, it'll be passed here in the next year or so.
For our viewers that don't know NARIS, National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, correct?
And it's called the Recording Academy
Academy, okay.
Which they do the Grammys. That's kind of what everybody knows them for.
Everybody knows them for. That's great. Okay, let's take a step back, and even maybe before Belmont, because I know you're a Belmont grad, but I want to know where you're from, and did you grow up, playing instruments or engineering? any of that. So maybe let's start from the beginning. So
wow, going way back there.
I don't know how far back you want to go, but
you know, I'm from a little town called Albion, Illinois.
Okay.
About 1,800 people.
Okay.
It's funny, Dan Keene.
Oh, really?
Knows. I think he's got family from there.
I didn't know that.
And I grew up there, small town. My dad was
middle
a mechanic.
of the state.
Near Evansville, Indiana.
Evansville,
so
okay.
it's about 4 hours
Okay.
north of here.
Okay.
And I mean, I got interested in music, you know, in middle school, where you kind of do. I did sports. I found out a few years ago, my band teacher, who was really an inspiration to me in the beginning in music, and really kind of fired me up in music. He came down through town and we had breakfast, and I hadn't seen him in years.
Awesome.
And it was cool. It's always cool to reconnect with people like that.
Yeah.
And he was telling me the story of, you know, middle school, because as a basketball player, I had my growth spurt early, so I was tall and the center, you know, on the team. But apparently him and the coach got into a big tiff because...
Wow. They're both fighting over you?
Yeah, because I quit basketball to kind of move it more into music and stuff by then.
Now, what was were you in band? Or
I started in band.
Yeah.
And he actually played guitar in a local band, and that got me interested in guitar.
Cool.
And I started off playing trumpet. And although the first band teacher tried to get me into trombone, said I had the right something to play trombone. I think he just needed trombone players. But I played a lot of different instruments, from trumpet to trombone to upright bass to French horn.
Cool.
Percussion, some different things throughout the, you know, those years there. But I really got into guitar by 8th grade and so formed a band by the end of that year, and then played in that for a couple of years. Joined another local band that was a tri-state band, and played with them into my first year of college, which I went to a community college there. And from that point, that first year of college there, real interested in recording.
Now, how did that? Did you walk into a studio one day, or did
no?
You
know,
start
I mean,
reading
it
liner
was
notes?
Very naive.
Yeah.
I mean, just going, man, you know, what I want to do, because I'm looking. I mean, I think, you know, at least for me, it was like in high school, you're looking at the list of things to do, and you're going, okay, how much money does that make?
Right.
You're going, yeah, maybe I'll do that. But I mean, I was looking at going into electrical engineering, is what I actually looking into going in. And I actually met my wife the summer after my junior year of high school.
Oh, wow. Dude, that's
awesome. And so we were dating, and, you know, she's like, well, do you want to... And there's a factory. That was one of the things that kept the town kind of going. And a Champion filter factory. And it's like, well, do you want to stay here and play in the band, work at the factory, or do you want to, you know, move on? I said, I want to do something else, you know.
And so how did you find out about Belmont?
Well, and so I researched schools that had recording, you know, programs. Yeah. And Belmont, MTSU. I mean, you know, it wasn't like we had internet. So,
right.
You know.
I remember those days.
So looked into that. University of Miami had sort of a recording program, but it was based on playing. I really kind of wanted to play. You know? That was one of the areas I was interested in. So I came down and looked at MTSU, Belmont. Right. So did a couple of the other band members that I was playing with, and they ended up going to MTSU, and Belmont just felt like the right fit.
And those were the Malloy days?
Those were the Malloy days.
Malloy was still there.
And my roommate, when I came down, I transferred as a sophomore. My roommate was Steve Freilich, and he was a senior. Yeah. And was very, man, him and Bob Malloy were very instrumental in connecting me with the people I still know today.
That's great.
And Bob was a great mentor, you know.
I think I still walk by that plaque. There's some plaque there down there in the basement of the Malloy Studios that has your name on it. I don't know if it's Engineer of the Year or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it is, yeah. Well, so you majored in music business with I guess that was a production.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember
back then.
A focus, but yeah, it was an MBA.
Okay, so you then obviously graduated, and so did you start assisting around town? Or?
Well, you know, so one of the things the thing that connected me was I started doing demos. I mean, with I think Dan Huff was an original member. I mean, Dan and a few guys, and Doug. I mean, we're all people that I met there. You know, Mark Wright. Several people. But I started doing demos for Dan. He was him and Billy Smiley and Gary Lunn, David Huff, I think, had a band called Whiteheart.
Yep.
And they were doing demos at Glazer Brothers studio.
Okay.
They got free time from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., right? That when everybody was done, we'd go inside, set the alarm, and I would go in and do their demos. You know, and you know, obviously a free thing. And because Scott Hendricks was doing them before that.
Right? Wow, such a small town. All these people start from the garage and now.
I know. I look at you do. When you have the opportunity of a few years to look back and go, I get it now. You know, back then you're going, I don't know what's happening.
Right.
But yeah, so I would do those, and my senior year, I started my senior year. They got signed to Chris Christian's label, and a guy named Brown Bannister was in house engineer. Well, he had started producing Amy Grant.
Yeah.
So he had left the studio, went off doing that, and Chris was looking for an engineer for the studio. So when he heard the demos, I'm assuming, I never got the story, but I'm assuming when he heard the demos, because they called and wanted to hire me as a staff engineer.
Cool.
So I dropped part-time my last semester and took the job, because it's like, well, I don't want to quit, because I had a personal loan that I had taken out for school, so I had to finish because of that.
Yeah.
But so I dropped down to part-time, finished over the next 2 semesters, and worked there. In the meantime, they allowed me.
And they were cutting mostly demos, some masters at that studio?
Yeah, some masters, some demos. And the connection I made there, I mean, I feel like a lot of students nowadays have a very concise plan.
Right.
You know, going and vision for what they want to do.
Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way, right?
And I don't know that I had I don't know that I was looking beyond the wall, you know?
Right.
But it's like, okay, I'll go through that door.
Yeah.
But I met a guy, Keith Thomas, who was writing with Ronnie Millsap at the time, was a writer for him, but left that and started producing Christian records. He'd produced a Kenny Marks record to start with.
Yeah.
And then we met out there at Goldmine, and Word Records rented the studio by the month out there. Wow. So at that time anyway. So they sent a lot of their projects or demos, anything they had to go out there. So on the days that it didn't work, which wasn't too often, because all I can remember is working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
I mean, I slept there, you know. I got married, let's see, it'd been around my junior year of college, you know, so.
And
anyway,
newly married, sleeping on the couch in the studio.
It's like long hours, and Kim's was very understanding and low maintenance, so she would come see me. And
that's a good lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Marry an understanding spouse.
Oh, you do, because I know some people didn't. It'll mess with. But anyway, so I met Keith. He started producing. First record I did was his instrumental record.
Okay, cool.
And Bill Schnee. Heard it, was friends, I guess, with Keith, and heard it and wanted to mix it. So Keith said, come out, watch him mix, which was an experience that I still remember to this day, because I think he's a master at what he does. Yeah. So all those, and then it just turned into, Keith obviously got traction from Carmen, and BB and CC was a big record.
Just more calls and more calls, and
it just sort of, and then after a year and a half, I went freelance out there and still worked at the studio.
So you at this point were primarily tracking, some mixing, not producing yet, right? But
not producing, primarily recording and some mixing.
Okay.
Okay. I mixed that. I think I mixed that first Whiteheart record.
Oh, cool. So. Well, I was going to even ask you what, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but when people think of your name, do they think nowadays more mixing, tracking, everything, or what? I mean, it's hard. I guess hard for you to say.
Well, I don't know. But
hard for you to say at this point.
I would assume mixing and producing. Because that's the majority of what I do.
Kind of what you moved into at that point.
That's most of the calls I get.
Okay. Well, we'll get there, but I want to go chronological. So,
all right.
That's fine. So in the meantime, obviously you were working under some producers. I'm looking at some of these names: Winona, Faith Hill, Leanne Rimes. Were those all different producers?
That was 90s.
Okay.
There. I mean, the 80s were really the Christian era. And Keith Thomas, I worked with Brown Bannister, Rick Kua, a lot of different producers and artists through that. I did Stephen Curtis Chapman's first couple of records. So that was that. Sometime in the 80s, mid-80s, I met Well, Scott Hendricks, we'd, from the White Hart stuff, I guess we'd made a connection.
Yeah.
And he would call me to engineer some things, and because he was starting to produce.
Cool.
And he called me for a Restless Heart session that David Foster was the musical director, I think, for a movie. It was a Michael J. Fox movie, and wanted Restless Heart to do a song, and Scott said, would you come and track this for me? And
Sure.
I said, well, yeah. So that was the first time I met David, got to work with him. And also working with Brown, he would fly LA musicians in for Amy Grant and some of the things he would produce. So I got to know like Robbie Buchanan, some people like that. And I started making these connections in LA.
Oh.
And so I went out to LA for a few things. Would fly out and do a few things out there, and got the bug. And, around 86, somewhere in there, just one day, said, I think I'm going to move to LA.
Really?
And talked to Brett Perry, who was assistant Keith at the time. And Brett goes, I'll go with you. So it was.
And you were still married at this point,
and
right?
I'm still married.
You told the wife, hey, we're moving to LA.
And had, had started a family.
Yeah.
And, of course, again, incredibly supportive.
Right.
She's like, I think you should do it.
Awesome.
So it was literally probably 5 or 6 weeks later, loading up the U-Haul with my gear, no furniture, my gear, and me and Brett drive out to L.A. I can still remember the feeling coming over that first hill and looking out over that sea of lights and going, what have I done?
Yep, that's a big sea of lights there. Yeah. So how long were you there then? Or
about 5 years.
Okay.
We stayed about 5 years. Like I said, the BB and CC Winans record really, in the R&B industry, spurred that whole thing, and I did a lot of R&B, a lot of pop, a lot of stuff out there. But and it was the end of '91, Thanksgiving, that we moved back. I've just felt the draw to come back, felt led back, and we just felt like it was the right decision to come back. Yeah, and we did.
Wow, that's cool. We got to take a quick break. We have to take these little break things because sponsors and stuff. So
come on.
We'll be right back with Jeff. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Producers Room. Once again, our guest today is Jeff Balding, and we were just at the time that you came back from Los Angeles. So was that the transition into working with some of these country names that I had listed off before, or were a few more years before you jumped into
that was pretty close to the time. I mean, within a couple of years. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, I started working with Tony Brown. I started working with Barry Beckett.
Okay. Yeah.
Although Barry would hire me more for the rock and more the stuff that wasn't country.
Right.
I mean, I remember going to England for a project for a rock band, a Scottish rock band, and some different things that he did.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then Doro came here, who was a German metal artist, and that was great.
Well, we'll get into your metal career here in a minute.
And then Dan Huff, who has been a great friend over the years, and he wanted to start producing, so he had asked me if I'd engineer, like be his engineer. I said, awesome. Yeah, sure.
That's great.
Not realizing that, I had no doubt that he would be successful, not realizing the extent of what we were going to do,
Of what he did, yeah. So then how did you, because I do have some producer type questions to ask you, then how did you move from engineering to producing? Was it a particular album that someone asked you to produce as well?
It was. I mean, it's probably, me and Dan probably been working together maybe 7-8 years. And I had an opportunity. One was Tim Rushlow record. Was on Lyric Street. He was signed to Lyric Street, which Doug was A&R. And I was invited to produce that. Later was Josh and Cheyenne Ragsdale, which was great music that the world never got to hear.
See, I haven't heard it, so I need to go listen.
It's one song was released, but the record, I mean, just great.
So one more time, the name of the artist, just so I can, and the audience can go check it out.
Joshua and Cheyenne Ragsdale.
Okay.
It may have been called Ragsdale.
Okay.
Josh and Cheyenne. And like I say, I think Lyric Street released one song, and then the record never made it out.
Yeah.
But and then Dave Mustaine from Megadeth had asked me to produce a record.
That's cool.
And so it was kind of around that time that I went, I think I may transition.
Yeah.
It was just kind of made sense. I think it's always good to change things up.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean, I was going to say, because you have so many great technical chops, I just know from watching you and watching some of the things you've been involved with that it might be hard to give it up sometimes and step away from it,
Well, it is, but it's good to,
Yeah.
it's good. Actually, it's hard to concentrate when you're producing. It's hard to concentrate on that. Because,
right.
I mean, honestly, when I'm engineering, especially tracking, I mean, it's not like you get the sounds and then hang back.
Right.
It's like until the master take's done.
Yeah.
You're like changing and you're creating the whole sonic spectrum. To me, it's not like, well, you just put 57 on it and record it, and it'll be fine let the mix guy do it.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking for a vibe and looking for something that's going to bring it.
Exactly.
Try to get down the road in the vision as much as you can.
Yeah. I think I want to jump into technical because I'm really excited to jump into technical stuff, and then we'll jump into maybe some more overarching production questions.
Right.
But okay, so let's start with software. What's your software platform that you feel most comfortable with that you use at your studio?
Pro Tools is.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
that's just what everybody sends, and so that's what I use.
Cool. Good answer.
It's like it works.
Are you working out of one particular room in town, or is it your room now?
About 7 years ago, I put a place, and I bought an API console, and put all my gear in a room, and just it sort of morphed into that. I started just going, I wonder if this will work, but I could feel the change coming, because that was about the time that you're going, budgets are going down. Yep. People's wanting something, and I'm wanting to make sure I give you a product, because I did a run, the mix room down here, Masterphonics, and you get a hard drive or tape, 3348, whatever it was, or at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. You go in at 10, and at 4 o'clock, the label guy or somebody was coming by 4 or 5 to listen to the mix, and you do a few tweaks, and you go home for the news, and
you saw the writing on the wall for that.
Yeah, it's like, I started off, I mean, in the beginning, even working with Keith, we'd listen to CDs, we'd get inspired, find a sound, create something, and I like to create things. So this allows me to, if you want to spend a day and a half, it's on my dime, but
that's cool. Yeah,
it's like you at least get to where you feel good about it.
Yeah. So we talked about software. You mentioned the API as well. Let's talk about, I think I want to take it from this angle. Maybe I'll name a category of processor, and you can maybe tell me what your go-to hardware and software. And I know that's such a broad, it depends on the type of music, the tempo, all of that. But let's just maybe try it at least. So if I said EQ, and once again, Desert Island, and then you can have one analog or one outboard EQ and one digital EQ, what would be your go-tos?
Oh, man. Now that is tough.
Well, you can name 2 or 3. Why not?
Yeah,
I'll give you some latitude.
I mean, I love vintage stuff. I love Neve.
Okay.
I mean, obviously that. I think if you had to have one EQ, I love Neve and API.
Just like a 1081 and a 512 or 550?
Those are great.
Yeah.
But if you have to do other things that's a little more surgical and still kind of have stuff, honestly, an SSL EQ is a great EQ in its own right. So.
And I know you're a big UAD advocate. So, do you sometimes choose, if you have to do several of them and you don't have them outboard, choose the plug-in version of the SSL or the Pultec?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I've got both, but I do a hybrid setup.
Okay.
The way I mix, so I can go between things fairly easily.
A/B.
Because you have to. You have to. I mean, people like to live with mixes, and you can't sit there for 3 days.
Right. Exactly.
So it's a little bit of a hybrid, and plugins have gotten better and better.
Yeah.
I mean, they just sound better. The UAD stuff sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, next category, if we can. We'll just keep trying.
Yeah.
Compressors, and that's such a broad category. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3. Let's not talk bus compressors. Let's just talk you're compressing an instrument.
Yeah. a Yuri 1176 Blue Stripe is
awesome.
just hard to beat.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've got 2 of those, and
cool.
They're great.
Yeah. Okay. And anything in the box that compares to any outboard stuff? I'm trying to think of. Do you have any go-tos in the box if you have to choose a compressor?
Man, usually in the box. I mean, the normal vintage stuff like that comes around where you want more than what I have outboard wise. Yeah. Other than that, it's looking for something that does something different that I can't get somewhere else. Yeah. What is it? Fab Filter. Yeah. C2 is a cool compressor.
I love all their stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot of great ones out there.
Good. I think we're achieving our objective here. Let's do reverb. So, you don't have a bunch of plates or chambers, real plates or chambers in your studio, I would assume. So,
no, and just for ease, I use plugins. Okay. Honestly, I use. Once again, like the UAD 250 is great. The AMS they have is great. I mean, it's kind of all the normal what you would
things
plug
you
up.
Would find in the,
I just sort of have them all built in to the template. Use that.
Delays. I'm just going down the list here.
I was talking to a guy the other day about this amp farm, right?
The amp farm.
That plugin.
Or Echo Farm.
Had a memory man delay that
was killing in the track. Oh, sorry, you and Billy Decker. That's Billy Decker's favorite one too. And I said
I can't use it anymore on 12.
I said for us native users, we can't use those.
I
and
can't
now
use it on this system.
Because it's 12. Yeah. So what have you found any?
I haven't found anything that sits in the track nearly as good as that. But
Echo Boy?
I do use like Echo Boy, and I use the Maestro, the Echoplex, UAD Echoplex, and a few things like that.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
But yeah, that one, for whatever reason, just had the right mush that's set in the
that's funny, because that's the second time I've actually heard that preset. That's great. Okay, so now let's move into, we're still on the technical, and forgive me but you're one of the guys I can talk this stuff, this geek stuff.
Geeky gear stuff.
Desert Island, let's do a couple instruments, but let's start with vocals. Desert Island vocal chain. Yeah. Do you want male or female? Do you want me to?
No. I mean, I use a 269, a Neumann 269.
Is that the modded? Tell me more about that.
No, it's not modded. I think it's a European model. It's got a little more whiz on top. Yeah, it's a 67 with a little more whiz on top.
Okay.
Although some techs will tell you they're not different, but they sound a little different. If I had to have one to cover everybody, I'd probably do a 67 because you can get what you need out of it. But yeah, over the years, all those country records were 269s through a TubeTech CL1B and a Martech micro.
Yeah, the MSS whatever
10,
it is. Yeah. That's real clean, right? It's just
that's
real
a very
pristine.
Clean, straight chain.
Yeah.
You can't overdrive the Martech or the TubeTech.
Yeah.
You'll definitely hear it.
Right.
Martech, you can get away with a little more. But,
that's beautiful.
But that's a great, solid, just kind of go-to chain that you don't have to think about. Yeah. Now, I've got a Telefunken V76M preamp that
gives a little bit more
is
color.
Just great and adds a little bit more beef and color to it. Okay. And I use that on a lot of vocals. But.
So they take those out of the console, the Telefunkens, and rack them.
Yeah. Kind of thing. And I bought that back in the 90s.
Okay.
And I think it come out of one of the consoles out of EMI or something, the guy said.
Wow. Okay, let's do Master Bus Compressor now before I forget that one. So, obviously outboard, but are you doing SSL? Are you doing...
No, I don't do SSL. The API 2500 I used for years.
Yeah, I love that.
With an API console, it's a good fit. Sometimes a Focusrite Red 3, one of the older ones with the transformers on the ins and outs. That's the main two. I've got a 33, 32264 Neve, which is like the upright modules before the 33609. And that's a nice, smooth, beefy sound too.
Right.
So it just depends, but mainly the API probably.
Yeah. Are you doing too much work pre-mastering, or usually allowing the mastering engineer to do a lot of the level stuff?
Well, the level stuff I send to them, but when I do refs, I definitely
crank it.
You have to.
You have to be competitive.
I mean, yeah. Otherwise, they're going. It doesn't have any life.
Okay, we'll get out of this land, but 2 more questions.
All right.
Any other funky piece of gear that you use in your engineering process that and you could disclose with us that people would that people wouldn't know about? Not like the Eddie Van Halen behind the curtain, but just any other kind of secret sauce that once you started using it, you're like, man, this really made a big difference. Or it made a big difference in your recordings, I guess, over once you hit that piece of gear. I guess a console would be of course, you always worked on consoles, right?
Yeah.
So it's not...
Yeah, I mean, a console, once again, a vintage guy. So knees for drums are just great.
That's good. That's good.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, there's...
Well, there's so many tools out there. I guess maybe another question would be, with so many things, how do you even know where to start, for the young engineer?
Well, it is. I mean, it's a lot of experimenting
right.
and remembering what something sounds like. So when you run upon something, you go, you know what, that'd be great. I've got a little Shure 4-channel PA mixer, right?
Yeah.
And it's the compressor in it is like the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So if for room mics, mid-room mics on drums, I mean, it's like an ADR or something. It's except different and just really good.
Yeah.
So, and they're $124 on eBay or something. So it's not like it's expensive, but it gets you somewhere.
Cool. All right, I'll quit bugging you. I'm sure more technical stuff will pop in my head, but let's move on to talking about some production type of questions. So, this is a production type of question. So what steps need to happen in the pre-production process when working with a new artist? So I guess I kind of want to just know if you met an artist today, before you took them into the studio, how would you decide on the songs? How would you treat pre-production with the band or otherwise? And how do you, another question that ties in there is, how do you stay true to their original vision for the project? So all of that wrapped into one.
Wow. That's a lot.
Maybe too many, man. Machine gun questions.
So much of it depends. I mean, if it's a single artist, if it's a band.
Okay, let's say just a single artist. What genre do you want to pick? Well,
I mean,
yeah.
Doesn't matter. If we're going single artist, go country.
Okay, country, we're in Nashville.
So I mean, what that looks like is definitely getting together, figuring out not just where the artist, what he likes, and where he wants to go.
Right.
But who he is.
Sure.
I mean, because I think a lot of times an artist will overlook who they are and where they came from.
Right.
And I think that plays into a reality and a truth in their music. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important to really get to know them and really figure that out and make sure it's on target. Once you do that, then it's songs, and songs depend on, I mean, obviously great songs are key, but also is it from their perspective? Are they saying what they want to say?
That's good.
I mean, it's important to, if an artist doesn't have anything to say, they have to have something to say.
Right. I mean, I've heard that, like, if it's a song about singing something about your kids and you don't have any kids, that's probably not too authentic.
Well, that would be a real obvious one there. Yeah.
Right. But
they're not always that obvious. But that's it.
Yeah.
So and then the target market, obviously, where you're going with it, because that guides production values as well.
Okay, so that's a great answer for all those. And now you're up at the place where you got to pick your studio and what I call cast your band.
Right.
How do you make those types of decisions as a producer?
Same thing, I think, musical.
Okay.
Or from a musical direction.
Yeah.
You kind of know what musicians do, and we all hate to be like bagged and like go, he does
their
that.
Thing, yeah.
But you do look at that, but you look at personalities between the musicians. You look at personalities between the artist and the musicians.
Right.
An artist, depending on how temperamental, can really be turned off, by a musician, and your session will die.
Have you had that happen before? You speak like you have.
No, of course not.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
So it is. It's very interactive, and it goes outside the musicians too. It goes to whether it's an assistant, an intern, any engineer, anybody in the room.
Yeah.
You kind of got to really. I think you do.
Yeah.
You have to think about all those aspects, you know.
Wow. And then are you rehearsing the band, or, you know, there's different views in Nashville. Like some people will just say, we'll just go to the studio, and these guys are such pros that they'll get it, and that's cool. And then I've heard guys like Paul Worley will take them to an SAR and rehearse. So
and rehearse, yeah.
I guess it depends.
I think it all works.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what the vision is, what the demos are like.
Right.
Obviously, if you do pre-production, program stuff ahead of time, if you're going that route.
Yeah.
If you could feel like you can really cast your vision in the moment there, then there's no reason to rehearse for me.
Yeah.
If I feel, and budget, depending.
Right, the budget's a big one too.
You know, that's a real big one now.
Okay, we're going to talk more about money and budget when we come back with Jeff Balding. See you guys soon. Welcome back to the Producers Room. We were talking to Jeff Balding just a minute ago about production and pre-production and all that. And I want to get to the question of budget. Let's hang on to that real quick, because I'm going to ask you about some changes you've seen during your time in town. And my next question is, so you get into the studio with the band, you're tracking a master, we're pretending it's a country male artist at this point. How many songs are you going to get to in a day with a master session? But that also ties into budget, right? That question. So,
well, it does to some degree. I mean, I think there's limits. I mean,
right.
I've found that I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't throw stuff at the wall.
Right.
know?
Right.
And leave comfortable.
Right.
You know. So for me, it's maybe 4 in a couple of sessions.
Okay.
At the most,
Yeah.
but probably 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And is any take in your mind too many takes? Like if it's 10th take or 15th
no,
take?
well,
as long as it's the right thing?
As long as you're getting somewhere, no.
Okay.
I mean, I don't get tied up in the
yeah, right. And
those type of things like, oh, I can't do it. It's like, no, as long as everybody's comfortable and
Cool.
you're going, if you went the wrong direction or
Sure.
you're trying to get something specific and everybody's okay with it,
Yeah.
and they're getting that vision as well,
Right. That's cool.
it works. If you're just banging heads, then no.
All right, I'm just trying to think of it chronologically. Tracks are down, now you're working with the singer, and this is, I really want to see maybe some techniques you have, especially for our audience, to get singers to do what you want them to do as a producer, I guess. I mean, as far as how do you motivate singers, how do you work with singers, or any tricks you can share with us with vocalists?
Well, I mean, the big thing's comfort and trust.
Yeah, okay. That's
I
great.
mean, you know, and that a lot of that gets developed before you get in the vocal booth.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's really trying to develop as much of that as you can up front, because if they don't trust you, you're not going to get too far.
That's big, yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And that's in general, I think,
Yeah.
anything you do, but
Yeah.
especially vocals.
Wow.
I mean, you know, you create an atmosphere as much as you can for them.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how much you have to do. I mean, it's nice to do a vocal, do some passes, comp it, let them live with it, come back, do some more passes, let them beat it.
Sure. Yeah,
And
that's
then
good.
Any fixes, you know, that's the comfortable approach.
I like that. And so they're taking the ref home and listening just as well as you're listening. You both are making notes and then coming back.
Because there's something about living with a track, especially if it's a fresh track and you go right into vocals. If you can send them roughs to work with, and they will.
Yeah.
You know, but there's something about once they start hearing themselves after they get out of the vocal booth and out of the studio, they're going, man, I wish I'd do that, or
that's
you
true.
know, it inspires.
That's true. I like that. Okay, now if you're producing, are you the guy to mix, or when do you step back and say, I'm not the guy to mix and I need to send it to someone else?
I usually end up mixing. Some of that's because of budget.
Budget, once again, comes to
once again, because everything
see,
gets rolled in.
Can you keep perspective if you've been with the project that long?
I'll be honest, I have a hard time mixing what I produce.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult.
I would assume so, because you've heard the song so many times and you're used to certain levels and
you've
things.
built it kind of how you hear it.
Yeah.
So you feel like you have to do so much more by the mix.
Yeah.
And normally you don't.
Well, I guess the flip side would be, since you tracked it, you probably were thinking about mix when you tracked it, right? As far as
and you normally do.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I think it would be. I've actually, you know, my thought now is get somebody else to do all the recording.
Yeah.
And then mix it.
Yeah. I can see all of those angles, and so that's why I was curious of what you thought about. Okay, let's talk about budgets. I'm ready. So, of course, we know that budgets have changed, but gosh, where do we go? I mean, do we say they were a tenth of what they used to be, or 20? I mean, and how do you deal with that?
It depends on the level of artist.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're smaller.
Yeah, right.
You know?
And so we've already learned some workarounds, which are maybe try to fit more something into a session. I don't know.
Well, I think your priorities are getting great tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if it's hiring, spending more of the budget on great musicians,
right, and
a studio that's going to bring you what you need. That would be the next thing to go. I think musicians are probably most important, because if you're not, you can go in and do it quick.
Yeah.
With great musicians,
right,
and get that extra thing that lifts it and takes it to another level.
Right.
Whereas if you had to build something, it's just tougher and longer.
So you're telling me it's not about the microphone on the hi-hat? I'm just kidding. That's important too, right? But I agree with you. I agree with you, yeah.
So then you make your concessions from there.
So, and this is the trend I've seen talking to a lot of guys, is go to a larger studio, an Ocean Way, a Sound Kitchen, or whatever it is, Blackbird, track the basic tracks, then maybe bring it back to your smaller studio and do some overdubs.
And then you do overdubs, vocals that way.
Yeah, and maybe mix at your
and mix at my place.
Studio. Yeah. Cool. Well, that makes sense. We're done.
And then get somebody great to master it.
Yeah. So, well, that's true. Yeah. So what is the difference for our audience that's maybe not familiar with mastering? The difference between just like a master bus that you might put on master bus compression or whatever versus a professional mastering engineer.
I think a great mastering engineer with their ear, not only do they kind of make sure your bottom. Especially, that's the thing that I see the most. Make sure that's in order,
right,
and consistent. But these guys bring an extra depth or something that happens. I have no idea how to get it, but they bring something that
black art,
I'm going. Now the guys that don't,
no.
Well,
the reason I'm asking, because you've seen this Lander plugin, right, floating around the internet. It's this automated software. You send them the thing, and I just can't imagine that is really going to replace a mastering engineer.
I think you got to have a brain and emotion,
right?
And all of that.
Yeah. I agree.
It takes a person.
I agree. Okay, cool. So you know what? We have a segment of the show called On the Record. It's where you talk about a specific recording you've done with an artist, or maybe a couple, and maybe the genesis of that studio session, or maybe an interesting story that happened during that studio session. So I know I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this before you came in, but can you think of any of these artists that you work with, maybe a song that people are familiar with and maybe have a little bit of backstory to it, or the way it was engineered or produced, or anything like that? Or
wow.
We can take a break too and we come back if you can remember something.
I mean, there's, I think there's a lot of different things.
Okay. Or we can cover several songs, however you want to do it.
No, I mean, one thing that comes to mind is I worked on the first Taylor Swift record.
Yeah.
And
so was Nathan producing that yet or not?
Yes.
And you were engineering?
It was in the last round that he was producing.
Okay.
And, he come to me to mix, and they were out of budget.
Yeah.
Of course, this was a new artist that they didn't know what was going to happen. And we talked about budget, and I said, well, I don't have a home studio, but I could mix it. I was actually in between houses. I'd sold a house and bought land and was going to build. So I was in a rental house. I had a rec room, and I said, well, I can mix it, mix it in the box.
Yeah.
And we can go from there,
Wow, I had no idea.
And so I put it together at the house, basically. That was probably the first thing I'd ever mixed at the, in the box outside of the studio.
With what name? I'm trying to think of the Tim McGraw song and all that, or
all that. Yeah, Chuck Ainley mixed the Tim McGraw song.
And then Teardrops on my.
I don't
know the Taylor Swift. I should know the Taylor's first record, but Alex knows it, right? So wow.
So anyway,
that's mixed in the box. Really,
that's mixed in the box, and then we took it to the label wanted to hear it, and we wanted to tweak a few things. Okay. So we went to Masterphonics for a day and opened it up there.
That's a great story.
Hear it on speakers and stuff. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like,
wow.
And I always tell students and everybody, I said, it doesn't matter what you're doing, how low the budget is, always do the best job you can with what you have. And I did, the best I could do with what I had.
Yeah.
And because you never know.
Yeah. Now, were those demos that turned into masters kind of thing?
I think some of them may have been.
Some of them may have been. Wow.
I don't remember.
And so that goes to another rule. Even if you think it's a demo, record it as close to master as you can.
Well,
right?
And especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Because a lot of demos end up being masters.
Right. Wow, I like that story. Any more cool stories like that? I had no idea. Because I remember I teach my class that Ricky Martin's Livin' the Vida Loca was the first top 40 song mixed in the box by Charles Dye in 1999, I believe. So
wow.
You were close following that trend for country music.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So, something like that. Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about balancing family life and being an engineer / your production schedule. How do you balance family life and being an engineer? Do you take weekends off, or do you designate certain times?
I probably ebb and flow a little more, depending on the project. It's a little more freeform.
Okay.
But family's been very important to me over the years.
Good.
I mean, Kim even says I've probably lost things because
I
put that first. I mean,
in the scheme of
when I
things.
wasn't working, I go home. If I had weekends off, I spent it at home.
Yeah.
And I felt that was important. And when I couldn't be at home, she would bring the kids to the studio.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was mostly acceptable with the people I worked with.
That's awesome.
So they grew up thinking that was normal.
Well, that's the one good thing I would say about Nashville. It seems to be more
family-oriented
town where the artist would.
Well,
probably
it is, and I think that's
that.
what drew me back.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to look through our questions here. We're not going to answer a lot of these, but how do you budget and maintain the gear? Like how do you decide if you're going to buy a new piece of gear? Because a lot of us as engineers get what we call gear acquisition syndrome, right? And we think
is that what you call it?
Yeah, gas. Yeah, and we say, oh, if I only had the latest and greatest, 1176 retro compressor there.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's certain pieces that I feel as I go along that I go, that's going, well, now you have to weigh it and go, is it going to, make my job easier, faster?
Right.
Is it going to make a better product? And is it going to even bring me more work?
True.
Which a lot of those things line up, they do.
Yeah.
So you look at it that way, I do anyway.
Yeah, I like that.
If there's something that I feel like is going to make a difference and maybe it's not in the budget, I go, okay, what have I not used in the last 2 years? I'm not afraid to sell something.
That's cool.
I actually sold my first API 2500 and 3 years later bought it back.
You never know.
Because it's like I used it for years. It was like, okay, I'm going to try something different. And it's like, I hadn't used it, I'll sell it.
Yeah.
So, vintage pieces are a little more harder to find and get back.
Like you would probably sell your 269, or is it this 269, did you say, Neumann?
269. I actually don't own one.
You probably wouldn't sell it if you owned it.
Yeah. But there's certain pieces I wouldn't sell. But yeah, I think you have to weigh and measure it, especially nowadays. I just can't be a gear of the month.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you probably know your gear fairly well at this point. All your
well,
pieces.
And what it sounds like, and I'm not afraid to buy something and go, I think that would be great. Buy it and then go, that really wasn't what I thought it would do, and just move it on.
That's
it's
a great
just
thing
gear,
about gear. Yeah. We're going to take one more quick break, and then we'll come back for our final segment. So hang out, and we'll be right back with Jeff Balding. Thanks for watching. Welcome back once again. I'm your host, Dave Tuff, the Producers Room, and I want you guys to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Make sure to like us there and sign up for our email list. Okay, Jeff, so this last segment, we call this Rapid Fire. It's supposed to be a bunch of rapid fire questions, but I'll try to make it easy on you. I won't ask your favorite Star Wars characters, but I will ask you probably general questions to more philosophical questions. So what is your favorite type of food? That one's easy, right?
Well, not really. I got a lot of favorite types of food.
Okay, a restaurant in Nashville that you like?
How about one of the restaurants I love is Street and Company in Portland, Maine.
Ooh, so there you go.
Yeah.
You've been visiting Bob Ludwig up there,
and I got spoiled.
Eat that restaurant. That's good. And what type of food is that?
It's seafood.
Oh, wow, Maine. That sounds great. Okay, this one hopefully we're not diving too personal. I don't think we are. Your favorite all-time movie? Or two or three of them, maybe? I know I didn't prep them on these questions, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm putting you on the spot here.
I don't know.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, Desert Island album / song / CD.
Oh man.
Are these all hard ones?
No, they're not hard. There's just a lot of stuff. You know?
Can you name a few of them? Like, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Love Beatles stuff.
Beatles,
Pink
okay.
Floyd.
All right, awesome.
Just bought a vinyl of some Aretha Franklin stuff. I love Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Just
that's
nostalgic
great.
stuff.
I love it. I love all that. And so, all that stuff. Are you trying to capture that vibe? Now I'm going on a tangent, but capture that vibe in your recordings, because when I think of all those.
Well, I think you pull on a lot of the influences over the years. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like you go in going, I'm only going to do this.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think it's good. And honestly, I don't listen enough to music now.
Right.
I get in the studio so much.
Yeah.
That's the whole inspiration.
Exactly.
Is hear what people are doing.
Exactly. Okay. So once again, if I'm going too personal, just let me know. But what do you consider your greatest achievement, either professionally or personally, if you want to go that direction?
Well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, like I say, my family.
I think that's an awesome answer. I think that's an awesome answer. Okay.
I mean, we all hang together. We're like a tribe,
Do you have a few kids? Or?
2 kids.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Which word or phrases do you most overuse?
You'd have to ask my wife that one.
Okay, I will. All right. Any artist that you have not worked with yet that you would desire to work with in Nashville or otherwise?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question.
We have people watching here, so
that's a really good question.
You can name a few, or how about dead and living? No, that probably won't work if we say dead, because you can't work with them anymore, right? Okay.
I don't know that I got an off the top of the head answer for that, but I've worked with some artists that I'm thankful to have worked with.
Any artists that you've worked with that you would like to work with again?
Most of them. Some of them aren't around, but I got to work with Joe Cocker.
Oh,
wow. Was amazing.
Wow.
I got to do some work with Stevie Wonder
really?
Way back, and Smokey Robinson and some
Look
of
at
those,
this guy. This wasn't on your credit list. I didn't see these guys
people
on there.
like that, and Whitney Houston.
Wow.
And you look back and you go, that was really cool. And of course, people like Joe Cocker, the voice like that. I mean, Aretha Franklin would be cool too. I never got to work with her, but the voices that are just those iconic voices. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So something said to you by a mentor during your, few years you've been here in Nashville that improved your life for the better. I guess we're talking business end at this point. But any words of advice you got from a mentor that you still take to heart or use every day? That you can think of anything there?
As advice for?
You may pass it on to others too, but
yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things.
Okay.
I always like to tell people, don't strive to be heard, strive to be missed.
I like that.
I think that's important, because and I try to follow that. I mean, you do all the extra stuff. Some people, when somebody piles something on, even a producer going, hey, can you just do this overdub? I've got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Some people will go, well, that's not my, they'll grumble, kind of going, that's not my job. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
When, you know what? You're one-on-one with an artist. Who's the most important person you can network with?
Right. And that shows how we're really a service industry, and yeah.
Well, it is. And if it means running a CD to an artist's house, any extra stuff you can do, I think it's important. It creates a thing when you're gone. There's a little bit of a void. And going, oh man,
miss that guy.
Yeah. So I think that's
kind of like Alex over there. I miss you when you're gone, Alex. That's great. Any other piece of advice?
I've got a few things.
Yeah, keep on going.
I can't think of anything
because
else.
What I was going to ask you next is any other advice for students that aspire to be professionals, either producers or engineers and all that. So I think we could tie those last two questions.
Well, I think in today's world, like right now, 2016 world, I mean, we've got an ever-shifting industry daily. and it's becoming, because of the income streams shifting, the way they're shifting, and budgets and everything, which all that drives budgets down.
Right.
We're always going to have a top echelon.
Right.
Major labels, all that. I think that'll always be there. I think it takes that type of machine, if you will, to do that level of music. It's all the other stuff that I'm afraid, is shifting rapidly. Songwriting, is a whole mess right now.
Yeah.
So I think diversity is something that I say anything, when the more you can offer, which falls into that category. I mean, it's like, I actually had a young man interning for me this spring that it's like played guitar, and it's like I'm mixing something. I'm going, I need an acoustic guitar.
There you go.
On this, and he's like, I play. It's like, all right, let's see what you got.
Are you a member of the union? No, I'm just kidding.
So it's one of those things where it's like the more you can offer, and that sticks in my mind. That stuff that hangs there where it's like, all right, this guy was pretty valuable. So
that's great.
I think the more diverse, and I think you've got to be diverse, to do that. It may, hopefully, it's all within your passion field.
Yeah. Well, how can people, if they want to hire you for a project or just find out more about you, get a hold of you, or find your website? Or
yeah, I mean, I've got a website.
JeffBalding.com. Okay, awesome.
And there's a contact for Kelly Musgrave, who's my manager.
Okay, cool.
So they can reach out to her, or Facebook. You can reach out to me. I can connect however you want to do it. But
and maybe we'll see you at some Naris events as well, and
you will.
Recording Academy events,
of course,
P&E, and all right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest with us.
Enjoy.
All right,
pleasure.
All right, guys, that's this episode of the Producers Room. Tune in next time. We'll see you then.